Next face is a girl. It's every time you're leaning on it. It's good. Okay, so we've got the two parshiyot, the two last parshiyot of the of Sefer Vayikra, right? Behar and Bechukotai.
Wasn't it just Simchat Shlomo? Like 2 weeks ago.
Yeah. Right.
Wow.
Yeah. Time flies, eh?
Yes, time.
Okay, so there's so many different things to learn in these two parshiyot, and so let's have a look at we'll start at the very beginning for a couple of minutes, okay? At the very beginning of Parshat Behar, there's it starts in chapter. Where does it start? It starts in chapter 25. Yeah. I think that girl left. Yeah. She didn't. I guess she was expecting somebody else. I don't know. In any case, the parsha begins, "Vaydaber Hashem al Moshe b'Har Sinai limor." Hashem spoke to Moshe Rabbeinu on Mount Sinai, saying, "Daber el bnei Yisrael v'amarta alehem." Speak to the children of Israel and tell them, "Ki tavohu el haaretz asher ani noten lachem." When you come to the land which I'm giving you, v'shavta haaretz Shabbat l'Hashem. The land should rest a sabbatical year for God. So Rashi, you have Rashi, everybody? You don't have Rashi. Shimon is your Hebrew name, right? Yes. Mm. So let's have a look at Rashi. It's chapter 25. I don't know if you're on the right page there. You have to change the page there. Chapter 25, verse 1. Okay. So Rashi says, did you find it? It tells you the chapter at the top of the page. What is this, 25? So, Behar Sinai, so Rashi says, Ma inyan shmita el etzel har Sinai. Why is the Torah mentioning Mount Sinai in relation to this mitzvah of Shmita? Right, the following section of the Torah deals with the laws of the sabbatical year, and then also with Yovel, with the Jubilee. And so it's very unusual that the Torah says Hashem spoke to Moshe on Mount Sinai, saying, "Tell the people these laws." Right? Well, Rashi explains the question: "V'halo kol ha-mitzvot ne'emeru miSinai." Weren't all mitzvot taught at Mount Sinai? Right? So why does it have to mention it over here? Ela ma shmita, just like the laws of Shemitah, Ne'emru klaloteha upirtoteha v'diktukeha miSinai, just like the laws of Shemitah, all its details. And move over a little bit more. All its details, and we're doing the Rashi right now. What's your name?
Barbara.
Hi, Barbara. I'm Shalom. You can read Rashi script? Good. So it's right there. And what about you? Great. Real scholars, well, they're explaining it. Okay, it's the first Rashi in the first verse. Rashi is asking the question, I'll just start it again. The Torah says, Vaydaber Hashem Moshe Behar Sinai Leno. Hashem spoke to Moshe on Mount Sinai, saying, and tells us to tell us the laws of the sabbatical year and the Jubilee year. Rashi is asking the question, Ma inyan shmita esel har Sinai? Why are the laws of Shemitah? Shemitah means what? What does Shemitah mean?
Rest. That's the
literally it's literally is to let go. Let go. Okay, there's the Shemitah of the land. Let go, don't do anything, leave it alone, right? So that it should have a rest. Shabbat is rest. Shemitah is letting go.
I was thinking it.
Huh? Yeah, I'm explaining. So Shabbat is resting, right? And Shemitah is letting go. In other words, you let go, leave it alone, right? Also, there's also Shmitat Ksafim, like when the seventh year comes around, and if your brothers haven't been able to pay back their loans, right? You have to let the loan go. Like you release it, right? Unless you do a crucible. But that's the idea. So whenever all the mitzvot in the Torah were given on Mount Sinai, so why does it mention specifically here that Hashem spoke to Moshe on Mount Sinai, telling him these mitzvot? All the mitzvot were given at Mount Sinai, right? So Rashi says, Ela ma shmita, we're in the second line there, Ela ma shmita ne'emru klaloteha pirtoteha v'diktukeha miSinai, so just like all the details of the laws of Shemitah were taught on Mount Sinai, Af kulan ne'emru klalotehen kehen b'Sinai, so to all mitzvot, even the mitzvot where the Torah doesn't spell out the details as much as it does concerning Shemitah, because concerning Shemitah it really spells out the details. Other mitzvot are given much more cryptically, and there are many details. For example, tefillin, right? It says you should bind these words on your arm and upon your head, right? But it doesn't tell you what tefillin look like. It doesn't tell you what's inside the tefillin. These are all halacha l'Moshe miSinai. All the details concerning tefillin are laws that we have in an oral tradition that was given to Moshe at Mount Sinai. Okay, so one might think that some mitzvot were taught in detail at Mount Sinai, and other mitzvot were not taught in detail, right? So the Torah says over here that Hashem, so the Torah mentions Mount Sinai, and this is an example. This is an example for all other mitzvot, that you should know that just like all the laws of Shemitah were taught in detail on Mount Sinai, so too all the other mitzvot were taught in detail on Mount Sinai. Okay. So that's the okay, and then does your Rashi continue in your text there? And is there more?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it says Kach Shnuya b'Torat Kohanim, and then it says Vav Nun Lamed, which stands for V'Nigali. So Rashi says, it seems to me Shikach Perusha. It seems to me that this first part of Rashi was quoting from Torat Kohanim. Torat Kohanim is a collection of teachings of the rabbis from the Talmud on Sefer Vayikra. Okay? So now Rashi is explaining this. He says, V'nirali shikach pirusha, seems to me that this is the explanation behind this. V'fi shelo masinu shmitat karkaot shenishneit ba'arvot Moab v'mishneh Torah. Since we don't find, now Mishneh Torah is another name for Sefer Dvarim, right? What do you call Sefer Dvarim in English?
Deuteronomy.
What does that mean, Deuteronomy?
Second time.
The second time around. Judah from deux, two, right? So Mishneh Torah, Deuteronomy is a translation of Mishneh Torah, the repetition of the Torah. Okay? Now, in general, all the mitzvot of the Torah, I shouldn't say not all, okay, but the most of the mitzvot of the Torah are repeated again in Mishneh Torah, in Deuteronomy, and that's why it's called Mishneh Torah, the repetition of the Torah. But you also have some where part of a mitzvah is mentioned in Dvarim, and it's not mentioned in the other place. In other words, you can have a mitzvah where some details of the mitzvah are mentioned in one of the books, and the other details of the mitzvah are mentioned in a different chumash. Okay? So here in this case, for example, in Dvarim, the law of the sabbatical for the land, the law of the sabbatical for the land is not mentioned. Is not mentioned in Deuteronomy, right? So therefore, in other words, there are more details that are given to us later on in Deuteronomy, right? So therefore, the rabbis want us to know Shiklaloteha or Pirtoteha Kulan Ne'emru Misinai. So even though there's some additional details of this law that are only mentioned in Deuteronomy, so the Torah is letting us know, by mentioning Har Sinai, is letting us know that these details, which were only stated later on, not in Vayikra, but were stated in Deuteronomy, those were also given on Mount Sinai. It's not like there was a bunch of laws that was given on Mount Sinai, and then later on when Moshe Rabbeinu spoke about Shemitah again in Deuteronomy, that then some additional laws were given by God. All the laws, all the details were given right at Mount Sinai. Why were some revealed in total right at the start, and why were some revealed only partially, and then the rest of it revealed later on? That's a good question, but it's a good question, but I don't know the answer to all of that. That's for sure. But some of it might be revealed, some of it might not be. Okay, so
You know, this phrase is used in modern Hebrew.
which
Shemitah Har Sinai.
Right, as an aphorism, right. Like in other words, if somebody says something that seems to be a non sequitur, like like so they'll say Ma'inyan Shmita said Har Sinai. What's one got to do with the other? Or in simple Hebrew, Ma Kesher. What's the connection? Right? Miriam, I'm in the middle of giving a shir. So call me around 9:45, okay? Okay, so we've got a couple of people that joined us online. I see over here, Chaiki, hi Chaiki and Elliot. Good. So now, Rav Steinsaltz goes into this, and he says, did Rashi really answer the question? He's shaking his head. He didn't really answer the question. In other words, if the point was to tell us, if the point of mentioning Har Sinai here is to tell us that all mitzvot were taught in detail at Mount Sinai, so it could have done the same with any other mitzvah. In other words, any other mitzvah, it could have said, Hashem spoke to Moshe on Mount Sinai, and and so why particularly Shemitah? So the Steinsaltz goes into a whole thing about Shemitah. What is Shimon? You want to answer this? What's the essence of the laws of Shemitah? The details we know. It comes the seventh year. You're not allowed to work the land. You're not allowed to plant. You're not allowed to sow. You're not allowed to drive animals out of your land. Right? The animals can come and eat. Anybody can go into your fields and eat. You can go in there and eat and take some food home, but you can only take for what you need for the next couple of meals. You can't go and harvest whatever is growing there and put it in storage. What's the point?
You mean the meaning?
Yeah, what's the Torah trying to teach you?
That everything needs rest. We need rest. The land needs rest.
Let me ask you a question. Were you ever a farmer? All farmers know about leaving the land lie fallow.
Right.
It's practice. So do you need a mitzvah in the Torah to tell you to let it lie fallow? Does the Torah tell you that every night you should go to sleep?
No.
No, he does it anyway, even though the Torah didn't say so.
Or do it.
Right? So why would the Torah? So if it's just a matter of the land going fallow, leaving the land rest, I don't need the Torah to tell me that. And besides which, if it's just a matter of that, so what do farmers do? Is they rotate they don't leave all their fields fallow in a specific year. They'll leave one field fallow and then plant the others, and then the next year they'll switch and let the others lie fallow and plant that one, right? So you don't need a mitzvah in the Torah to tell you something practical like that.
But I think you've got to learn the respect for the land, because it's very easy to think that we're above the land, but in a way the land is above us because the way nature is.
Okay, so you have that right away at the beginning of creation, right? God put Adam on the land of Da'u Shemra to take care of it and to be like a steward for the land, right? In other words, to manage it properly. And we have other mitzvahs also, agricultural mitzvahs and so on. What's the word that's being used concerning the Shemitah? So look at the end of verse 2, right? Daber al bnei Yisrael v'amachta aleim ki tavo'u al ha'aretz asher ani noten lachem v'shavta ha'aretz Shabbat l'Hashem, right? So what does it say? V'shavta ha'aretz, the land shall rest a Sabbath to God, right? The same way that, what does it mean for God? What does it mean as a Sabbath for God? What is that supposed to mean? What do you mean for God? So look at Rashi, second verse Rashi. The first two words of Rashi. What does he say? L'shem Hashem. In other words, you're to let the land rest, not because it's a practical thing, but rather simply because God told you, right? That's because Hashem said, that's why. Just like every seventh day is Shabbos, and we're not working, right? It's Shabbat Hashem. Shabbos is Shabbos for God. It's a day that Hashem says, stop your work. Now it's a day of rest. Leave the earth alone, leave everything alone, and welcome Shabbos and receive Shabbos. Right? Same thing with Shemitah. 6 years you should work. The 7th year, leave it alone. It's a Shabbos for the land because this is what Hashem commanded. So what's the point behind all of that?
There are a lot of points.
Okay, let's hear a good one. No?
One is to restore the land to the way it was when God created it, rather than the way we've made it to be. So we're taking away our effort, we're taking away our creation, and letting it be the way God created it.
Okay. And what's the other point you want to make?
Another point is it's also showing trust in God if we're not going to plant for that year. Trusting that there will
Trust
be,
in God. Okay.
Yeah.
Good. Barak, can you ask Judy?
There was a cheat sheet here on the table.
Yeah.
Yeah, for the charge code because my battery's running out. Okay. Just
For the phone or the computer?
it's for the phone. Yeah. I mean, I'm going to plug it into the computer.
I was also going to say, I'm not sure it's universal that all farmers let their land rest.
Well, wise farmers, Julie.
Right.
Farmers who know what they're doing do it.
But they may have gotten it from Torah.
Not necessarily.
Okay.
It's just it's a naturalist thing, I think. That it's something that people would learn from experience, right? So basically, so Shabbos, right? Shabbos itself. What is Shabbos all about? Is basically to say, and as a matter of fact, a relative of mine came today. They just came for a month, and he's from it's from his side of the family that were related, and they're also he's coming from Holocaust survivors, etc. And but she is 6th generation American. She's one of a handful of families. She's from one of a handful of families that managed to be Shomer Shabbos, to keep Shabbos, all these 6 generations in Israel. I mean, in America. And I've met in Montreal. I've met someone that is from a similar thing, because to keep Shabbos back in even as late as the 50s, to have a job that you didn't have to work on Shabbos was a very, very difficult thing. When we came to Canada, it was a very difficult thing. You had to have a lot of mesiras nefesh. You had to have a real lot of conviction to keep Shabbos, and not only conviction, but ready to take low-paying jobs and to put up with a lot of hardships. There was no. I've told you the story about my father. I don't need to repeat it now, but so there were a few families, not too many, that actually they came to America in the 1800s still, and they managed to keep Shabbos. So Shabbos on a weekly basis can be difficult depending on where you're living and but for example, depending on what let's say you're a storekeeper, right? And people do most of their shopping on Shabbos, on Saturday, right? Well, it's not a simple thing to close your store. And especially in winter time, like 3 o'clock in the afternoon, 4 o'clock in the afternoon, Shabbos is coming in already. And so today, a lot of places are open also on Sunday, but not so long. So that's only recently, and not until not too long ago, nobody was allowed to be open on Sunday. So comes Shemitah, and in an agricultural society, right? Today, Shemitah is like the way Rav Steinsaltz puts it. It's a bit of a nuisance, but it's not such a big hardship, right? Because most of us are not living off the land, right? But imagine you're living off the land, and the whole year you have to leave it alone, right? And then when the 7th Jubilee year comes along, meaning the 49th year, not the Jubilee, but the 7th Shemitah comes along, right? Because Shemitah is every 7 years. So then the 49th year comes along, followed by the Jubilee year. So you've got 2 years where you're leaving it alone, right? So, like Shimon was saying, a big aspect of this is learning to trust Hashem, that Hashem is taking care of you, and further, there's another verse in the Parsha, which I'm just looking for it right now, but let me just keep this one in mind. We go to verse 18 in this chapter. Okay, we're going to move around a few pages here and there. Have to hold it because of the wire. I can't put it down because it's the. And then what? No, it's the bottom. I'll hold it. It's okay. It's okay. So, what does it say in verse? What does it say in verse 18? V'asitem et chukotai bet mishpatai tishmeru v'siyutchet. You'll keep my laws and the mishpatim. Tishmeru v'asitem otam, and you shall do them. V'yishaftem al ha'aretz lavetech, and that will ensure that you're going to be able to live in the land in security. V'natna ha'aretz piriya, the land will give its produce. V'achaltem rasova, v'yishaftem aleha labetach, and you'll eat, and you'll be satiated, and you will be full. Okay? And then he goes on to talk about, we're going to skip a little bit more, okay? We're going to go on to, here's a situation where somebody goes into poverty, and he has no choice, but he has to end up selling his land, and he has to sell eventually his home, and then eventually he himself becomes like a slave, right? So there's all these laws about that, and there are laws about how to treat him, etc., etc. Okay, and then at the very end of the Parsha, hold on, let me find it. I'm not finding the verse I'm wanting to find, but basically the verse says, you gotta know that the land really doesn't belong to you, right? So it's not that Hashem is taking it away from you during the sabbatical year, but rather he's affirming that he's the owner. Because after the sabbatical year is over, it's your field just like it was before the sabbatical year, right? So it's very, very much about knowing the earth belongs to Hashem. It belongs to Hashem. It all belongs to Hashem. And we have certain rights, limited rights. And I don't know what street this is in New York, but Reb Steinsaltz says there's a street in New York, and I tried to find it on Google, that apparently it's a public thoroughfare, but it's actually private land.
Rockefeller Square.
Is that what it is? Yeah?
Yeah.
And he
so-
says that one day a year they actually stop the traffic on that street, so
Right.
that they block it off, right? Just so that it should be clear to be known that this doesn't belong to the public; it's a private piece of property, right? So he's using that as an example to illustrate Shmita, to just basically say, Shem is saying, you know, it's not really yours, know that. It's Hashem's, be conscious of that. Okay? We're here on, like, you know, in a certain sense, it's almost as if like we're sharecroppers, you know, because part of our produce has to go to the Kohanim, etc., to the Levites, tithing, and so on. So Hashem is saying, yeah, I'm giving it to you, but just know it's not yours. You're not the master. And we as human beings need those reminders, right? But it's also, it's practicing the mitzvah of trusting Hashem, right, is we need to really build our trust. And we see later on in Dvarim, right, that when we're successful, we have a tendency to think that it's my power, my prowess that gained me all this wealth. So the Torah wants us to know and wants us to live with this consciousness of Hashem, that it's all Hashem and that it's all dependent on Hashem. And later on in the next Parsha, there's a whole section of what's called Tochacha, the big rebuke, right? With all these curses of things that would happen, God forbid, if we don't follow the laws of the Torah. And one of the verses that it says over there is that the land will lay desolate and it will take back all the years that we didn't allow it to rest. All the shmitot, all the sabbatical years that we didn't allow it to rest, the land will lay desolate and it will take it all back. Right? So that's one aspect that I wanted to discuss with you today. Another thing I saw teaching from Rabbi Nachman, since we've got I wonder if Avram Halevi is listening in. Huh? So Rabbi Nachman says, I saw this, by the way, this is a 5-volume series by Simcha Raz, and he brings beautiful stories here and so on. But he starts in this parsha, he also brings teachings. So he starts off by quoting a teaching from Reb Nachman, that in the very second verse of the parsha it says, when you will come to the land, in the beginning of the chapter, when you come to the land that I'm giving you, so it says that the land that I'm giving you. Elsewhere it says the land that I've given you, right? That Hashem has already given it to us. But here it says that I'm giving you. And we have, like for example, that concerning Torah, you have to see the Torah every day as if you just got the Torah for the first time, right? These words which I'm commanding you today, right? And right away the commentators to the Talmud says, what do you mean that I'm commanding you today? Hashem gave us the Torah on Mount Sinai. And so the rabbi says, Sheyu beinecha kechadashim, that they should always, the words of the Torah should be like brand new to you, right? Don't treat it like some kind of an old document, but rather every day the Torah is new. Hashem is giving us the Torah new every day. So likewise, says Reb Nachman, Asher ani noten lachem, concerning the land of Israel, he says that when he came to Israel, where is it? He was here for a short while. How long was he here for? Do you know?
6 months.
6 months. So he said,
To Breslau.
yeah. Well, who else has an opinion?
There are different opinions.
Okay,
Yeah. What do you think? 2 Jews, 3 Jews.
only. Okay. So Reb Nachman says that when he came to Eretz Yisrael, then he finally understood this properly. Why it says Asher ani noten lachem, because every day you get a new sweet feeling of of how beautiful Eretz Yisrael is. Every day is sweeter than the previous day, and you should see Eretz Yisrael as being a gift that you just got today. Okay. Now there's a mitzvah in the Parsha called V'lo Tonu. So if you go to chapter 25, verse 14 and verse 17. So we'll start in 14. Okay? Let's look at your downloads. Now here the Torah is talking about when somebody sells, if somebody's selling his land. Right? So you know that in the Jubilee year, all the land goes back to its original owner. Right? So when you're selling, let's say, a piece of land, what you're really selling is the use of the land up to the Jubilee year, up to the year of Yovel. So let's say there are 10 years left till the upcoming Jubilee. So then that piece of land is worth 10 years of usage. If there's only 5 years left, right? So it's basically worth only for 5 years because when the Yovel comes, it goes back to its original owner. Right? So the Torah says, "V'chi timkeru mimkar lamitecha." If you're selling something to your fellow, or kano miyad amitecha, or you're buying something from your fellow, so then it says, "Al tonu ish et achiv." Do not jip one another. Now that basically means that, let's say, now this is not true for anything and everything. It's true for certain basic items that you need for living, like food items and so on. So the vendor is not allowed to charge more than 1/6 above his cost, right? And if you find out that he overcharged you, the sale is actually invalidated. You can go back and say, "Give me my money back," or you can return the item. And likewise, if he made a mistake and he undercharged you by 1/6, this sale is also not a valid sale, and he can say to you, "Give it back to me or pay the difference." Okay? So the Torah is pretty much like governing economic. So now that this doesn't apply to services. Okay? Like for example, you want to charge, or how much you want to charge for painting the house or whatever it is. Like services is not, but we're talking about goods over here, goods that are normally traded. There are laws about that. Now, if you skip 2 verses and go to verse 17, then it says, "V'lo tonu ish et amito." You shall not. How did they translate it now? Verse 17.
Exploit.
Exploit, is that what they say? I want to just know what.
You shall not cheat one another.
And this is verse 17?
Yep.
And how did they translate it in verse 14?
Also cheat.
Also cheat. Okay. You shall not cheat one another. So this is the same verb in Hebrew. V'lo tonu ish et amito. You shall not cheat one another. I'll use that word for now. Or oppress. V'yareita me'elohecha, you shall fear your God. Ki ani Hashem Elokechem, because I Hashem am your God. And over here it adds the words that you shall fear God. Now, if you remember, if you ever learned this before in Parshat Kedoshim, there's a couple of mitzvot there where it says V'yareita me'elokecha, you shall fear God. It's an unusual addition to a mitzvah. In other words, usually, like the Torah tells you, this is what you do. It says, like, you should put on your tefillin, you should keep Shabbos, And it doesn't end up with adding, and you shall fear your God, right? So Rashi says over there in Kedoshim that in general, V'yareitem Elokecha is when it's a mitzvah that other people won't know that you did something wrong. Only you know. So the Torah adds, but you should fear God. Hashem knows what you're doing. Okay? So now here we're talking about, if you can find the Rashi in verse 17, okay? Yud Zion. Everybody ready?
Mm-hmm.
Yes? Shimon, you ready?
Yes.
Okay, good. Yeah. So it says Rashi, do not cheat one another. Kan hishir al onaat dvarim. This time around, in other words, the previous verse where it says Lotanu is talking about monetary deceit. Now it's talking about verbal deceit. Shelo yaknit ish et chavo. A person should not. How do they translate yaknit? I was going to say pinch. Okay.
Annoy.
A person should not annoy another with words. And don't give somebody advice that is not good for them. Right? Sometimes somebody will give advice to somebody and say, saying, "Oh, I'm giving you good advice," but what they really have in mind is good for themselves. Mm-hmm. Right? So these are examples of ona'at dvarim. Right? Verbal deception. V'im tomar. And should you say, Mi yudeya im nitkavanti l'ra'ah, who's going to know that I had some bad intention? V'kach ne'emar, so therefore it says, V'yareitem Elokecha, you shall fear God, your God. Hayudeya machshavot, he knows man's thoughts. Huyudeya kol davar hamasur lalev, he knows everything that's concealed in the heart. She'ein makir ela mi shemechashva b'libo ne'emar bo v'yareitem Elokecha. So too by other mitzvot, where only the person who has these thoughts knows about them, the Torah says you shall fear God. Because you should remember that Hashem knows what's going on. Right? Okay. So the Gemara has a number of teachings about this mitzvah of ona'ah. And I want to share some of these. Huh? Did I say chulin? I didn't say chulin. Are you asking? Maybe this.
No, because the one Gemara I'm doing actually talks about this.
Yeah. Okay, so it shows up in a few places. So, for example, one. You know what? I'm going to put it over here. This makes sense. Okay, let's see. But then it's not going to pick up the sound. Okay. So, for example, let's say you see about Shuvah.
The rubber pad.
Yeah. Oh. Okay. Okay, that should be good. It's not going to be a great picture, but it's fine. Thank you. Okay. It's silicone, by the way. It's one of those that really have things on it. Don't know. Okay. So the Gemara says, let's say you see about Shuvah. And you say to him, hey, listen, buddy, don't forget, just last year you were eating on Yom Kippur. You're hurting the guy. Why are you reminding them of something that they did that they're doing tshuva for, right? Or, for example, a convert or a descendant of converts you know, don't forget what your parents used to do. They used to worship idols or something like that. That's called ona'at zvarim, okay? Or somebody converts and he wants to come and study Torah. And they're going to say, yesterday your mouth was putting non-kosher food into it and now you're learning the Holy Torah, right? So, or for example, let's say some people who are leading donkeys and they need some wheat, and they're asking you, do you have any for sale? And you say, oh, go to Chaim Yankel, and you know that Chaim Yankel doesn't have any for sale, right? So you're verbally causing them pain. You didn't actually do any crime, right?
Yashar.
Yashar. It sounds like you've been in Israel for a while. So if you got the Yashar, okay, yeah. I said that's what I said, it right?
Everything is in that direction.
Right? So eventually, even if you have to circle the globe, right?
The next person who turns you around says Yashar.
And they're both right, correct? Yeah. Then says another teaching that Rabbi Yehuda says. Rabbi Yehuda says, let's say for example, you go into a store and you start bugging the guy, the storekeeper. How much does this cost? And you know that you don't have the money to buy it. So why are you bothering the storekeeper? Why are you bothering him and saying like, how much this costs? Like you're acting as if you want to buy it, but you know that you're not going to buy it, right? You're waiting for the bus and it's cold outside, right? There's a store right nearby. The next bus is going to show up in 15 minutes. No, I'll go into the store. I'll pretend that I'm shopping, this and that and so on. In the meantime, I'll stay warm. And the storekeeper is happy that you came in because he thinks, I might make a sale, right? And you start acting as if you're going to make a sale, and then the bus is coming. I got to run to catch the bus, right? That's called ona'at zvarim, right? And there are many other examples. For example, the mayor says, let's say you've got these barrels of wine that you're opening because you're going to be selling them to a storekeeper. And somebody comes into your house and you say, Hanale, in your honor, I'm going to open the barrel of wine. But you're not doing it in her honor. You were going to open it anyway, right? In your honor, I'm doing this. So if it's sincere, great. If it's someone that you need to respect, okay, fine, you can talk like that. But just like that, like to do, it's like sort of like flattery, like it's flattery is considered to be deceitful, right? Well, flattery might not be deceitful, but it also should not be done. Okay. Then there's another teaching from Rabbi Yochanan in the name of Reb Shlomo Bar Yochai, whose yahrzeit was just this past Sunday, right? Rashbi. He says that ona'at zvarim, verbal causing of pain, is worse than monetary pain. Why? Because if somebody causes you monetary loss, you can get your money back, right? But if you hurt somebody, you might apologize, but still, the apology doesn't undo the pain that they felt when you were verbally abusive. Okay. Actually, so Reb Shimon says the Torah itself tells us that the verbal ona'ah is worse because by the verbal ona'ah, the Torah says v'yareitem elokecha, you should fear God, right? Whereas by the monetary deceit, it just says you're not allowed to do this. Okay. And then the Reb Shmuel Bar Nachmani says that that verbal causing pain verbally or through your behavior is worse because even when you apologize, you can't really undo the pain. And then he brings an interesting teaching, and he says, and I don't know if you're going to like this one or not. This is from somebody, Rabbi Eliezer, from a place called Mitz. I don't know where that is. And there's a sefer called Sefer Yireim, a book about those who fear Hashem. And he says, just like there is ona'at dvarim, causing pain verbally, there's also ona'ah with giving somebody a bad look. Ayin ra, right? Some people come into you and you're happy to see them, and then some people show up and that's just sort of like you give them this look of like, what did you come for? Type of thing, and he says that's also ona'ah. Okay? Even though he didn't actually do anything, he didn't say anything, right? Just the facial expression is enough to do this. Okay? So that's a heavy one, because it's that one, like you really that's sort of like underlines Shammai's teaching in Pirkei Avot. Welcome everybody with a friendly countenance. Okay. Now, I saw something really amazing. The Talmud says that Shmuel was one of the rabbis of the Talmud. He once bought and you have to listen carefully to this so that you don't misunderstand it. He once bought a little pitcher that was actually gold, and the Gentile who was selling it to him as if it was just made of another not precious metal. So when he paid him, the price was 4 gold coins. He put in a 5th coin. Okay. So seemingly, Shmuel was transgressing on cheating, right? Let's say the vendors, he thinks that this is not gold, but you know that it's gold. And this brings up a very serious question. For example, you come across a piece of art in a garage sale, and you happen to know that, wow, this is really, really valuable. Okay, but the people in the garage sale, they're cleaning out their grandmother's stuff, and even grandma didn't know what this is, And I've heard of such stories of people coming across like something really valuable in a garage sale and so on, right? It's a serious question. Are you obligated to tell this person, hey, you should know this is really worth a lot of money? The truth is, you're obligated to tell. So the question is, what was Shmuel doing? How come he paid him only? He said, why didn't he tell this Gentile that this is actually gold and it's worth a lot of money? Why did he pay for 4 gold coins for it when it was worth a lot more? Yeah, okay, he threw in a 5th one. Okay, great, But what's going on? So he quotes Reb Nosson Adler, who was one of the great rabbis a couple hundred years ago, and he says the Talmud is not telling you about Shmuel transgressing. The Talmud is telling you something the very opposite. When Shmuel saw that this guy is selling this pitcher for the price of a non-precious metal, okay, for the price of a non-precious metal, Shmuel was wondering, wait a minute, does he just not know that this is worth a lot more, or maybe he stole it and he's just trying to get rid of it. Right? You ever see these guys? You want to buy a watch? Right? You know, they open up their jacket. You want to buy a watch? You ever see that? Right? And when you're fencing stolen goods, you don't want to hold on to the stolen goods. You just want to get rid of it as fast as you can, right? So Shmuel was wondering, is this guy an honest guy and making an honest mistake, or is this something that he stole? So what did he do? So he tested the guy. He gave him 5. The price was 4 coins. He gave him 5. And he wanted to see what's he going to do. If he's going to say, hey, you made a mistake, you gave me 1 too many, then he would see that this is an honest man, and then he was going to tell him, this is actually worth a lot more. But if he wasn't going to give him back the extra coin, right, that was a sign that this guy's got stolen goods, in which case, buy it for as cheap as you can and find the rightful owner and return it to them. You like that?
Clever.
Very clever. Very clever. You got it? Okay. So now, just a couple more teachings on this business of ona'ah from some Hasidic masters he brings over here. So the worker says, not only don't cheat your fellow, don't cheat yourself either. And don't fool yourself. Don't mimic somebody. You see somebody is like davening very intensely and shaking and this and that and so on. Okay, so you want to adopt the practice, that's fine, but if you're going to just do it just because so-and-so is doing it, so therefore I'm doing it also, this says, don't do that. Be honest with yourself. Okay? And the Krishna said, he preferred somebody who was pretending, who how did he put it? He preferred somebody who was pretending that he was fasting from Shabbos to Shabbos out of his devotion, out of his devoutness, over somebody who was practicing physical mortifications and he preferred somebody who was pretending that he's fasting from Shabbos to Shabbos, but he himself knew that he's just not being honest, than someone who would go rolling in the snow to cause physical pain and thinking, oh, I'm so holy. Okay? And that was the Krishna. And then the Shinover said he hated gold-plated things, because gold-plated jewelry and things like that. What do they call that? Costume jewelry? I mean, now it's a common thing, but maybe it wasn't so common in the past. But it looks like so it looks like like it's deceptive, and you're showing off with something deceptive. And the Pshishker said, you got to make sure that your mind and your heart are in unison. And then don't pretend that you're more devout than you really are, because you want somebody to do you a favor. Like if you're going in to see some rabbi and so on, and and let's say you don't normally wear a yarmulke, but you want the rabbi to do you a favor, and you go in and you put on the yarmulke just so that he should think that you're that you're a religious Jew and so on. That's deceptive. Right? And then the Ashik says, even if you're a thief and you have a partner in crime who's also a thief, don't cheat him. Huh?
That's funny.
There's a rule, by the way, if you're stealing something from somebody who stole something, right, it's not really his, but still you're not allowed to do it. Okay? So, like, if you have a partner in crime, like, when it comes to divvying up the loot, don't cheat him. Okay. So this is, and then you had the extreme of the Kutzker. He says even the slightest move that you make, like, there's something heavy being read in the Torah, and you sigh. It's like, like a sigh of anguish. Like in this week's Torah reading, right? We have the Torah, but you don't really mean it. But the guy next to you sighing, and the other guy, the woman, some other lady is sighing. So, but you don't really feel it. You don't really mean it. He says that's dishonest, and don't do it. And he says also, like, these people who there are people, like, they're sitting and studying and so on, but in the meantime they've got all these unkosher desires cooking in their heart and so on, but they're pretending that they're like, oh, I'm a holy person. And comes Shabbos, and they put on their kaftan and their shtreimel and so on, and they're acting like, like, oh, I'm so holy. In Kotsk, they throw you out in less than 3 minutes. In Kotsk was like they were fierce warriors for truth. If you weren't like managed to avoid by the Kotsk Rabbi, if you weren't a warrior for truth, don't hang around Kotsk. You'll be
around.
no. He didn't have many chassidim. He had a whole group of great people, but
Did they become another chassid?
yeah, some of them became rabbis and so on, and like the Chidush Sheharim, the Ishbitzer, and so on. But it was very difficult for people to stay around the Kotzker unless they were ready to be warriors for truth. Okay, so whatever level you're at, right? Whatever level you're at, try your best, and we should all be blessed to try our best to just plain and simple be honest. No, we're going to Parsha.